Hey guys, and welcome back to the Courageous Nerd YouTube channel for another interview. I'm Connor, and joining me today is a very special guest, Popternative founder, on-air host, and editor-in-chief, Peter Roumeliotis. We're going to chat about how Peter has founded and grown his brand since 2015, his new venture Popternative TV, as well as how Peter has helped Courageous Nerd to grow in the past couple of years. If you enjoy this interview or others on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. Hey, welcome, Peter, and thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
Connor, thank you for having me. This is different. I'm usually the one asking the questions, so it's a change of pace a little bit. I love
All
it.
the pressure's off. Yeah, just
Absolutely.
sit back, relax, and try and think of some interesting answers. I guess is my advice on this
Absolutely,
one.
but seriously, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of the site too, courageousnerd.com. Great stuff.
Thank you very much. And I guess launch into the first question. Your own brand, Popternative. You started that, I believe, in 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, I started in 2015, and it's interesting, Connor, because it definitely has grown over the years and has changed in terms of what it is. I was doing my master's in communications, was very interested in sports. So it started kind of as, these conversations between me and people that worked in sports and entertainment industry, and it was live at the time. But then it just kind of grown and changed, and now it's a full out media brand where I interview people from sports, pop culture, entertainment, like all over the globe, music, all over the map basically. And so it's very interesting to see the Popternative 2015 is it's not what it is now. It's completely different.
For sure. Yeah. And obviously, because that's 6 years ago when you started, or 6-7 years ago. Say if I'd met you 10 years ago, like, would you have expected your life to have gone in this direction at all? Like, is that something you were aiming towards?
I always wanted to make things. Like, I always wanted to make content. And that's kind of what I am basically with Popternative. I'm a content creator. Popternative is a media brand that covers a lot of amazing things, and I create a lot of things. And I wanted to, have a brand like Popternative where I'm able to do this, and that's basically what it is. So I was always interested in TV and pop culture growing up, in sports, being in Canada. So I always knew I was going to do something in kind of the entertainment industry for sure.
And I was wondering, like, could you discuss more like your thought process behind deciding to start Popternative?
Well, I always, podcasts at the time were very popular, especially in sports. So I wanted to do a podcast. I just finished my master's. I was applying for jobs, and I said, this is the opportunity. I want to do something where I'm interviewing people, I'm having conversations in sports, entertainment. So that's kind of where it came from. And it originally was like a podcast. And in a lot of ways, it still is a podcast, because the audio only versions of our interviews are posted on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So wherever you listen, you can listen to our interviews as well. Obviously, we push YouTube the most, but it started kind of as a podcast and got known as like a podcast. And some of the interviews were a lot longer, but now they're kind of like 12 to 15 minutes. They're not like an hour-long podcast. So the first idea of Popternative was it to be like a podcast.
Yeah, and then so the version that exists now, like, how much editing do you have to do around people in the interviews? Like, is what we see like exactly what happened, or is there a lot of cutting things out?
No, the only time there's cutting things out is if there's technical issues or freezes and everything. No, it's the what you basically like see and hear in the interviews is the interview. Basically, it's we go into it. I think I'm able to do that too, because we're just having fun, casual conversations. We're keeping it positive. We're keeping it fun. We're keeping it light. I know a lot of these people, this on press days and everything. People are doing many interviews over the days. You want to keep it fun. You want to keep it light. You want to keep it relaxed. So you just kind of, press play and go with it basically. So not that much editing has to do in the conversations. It flows. It's a really fun thing.
Absolutely. And I know, obviously, as we said, it's been 6 years for you since you started this, but would you say there was like a turning point, like a moment in particular where things kind of started to go like on the up, or like, rise, if that makes sense?
Yes. So, and I've talked about this a lot in interviews. March 2020, basically the start of the pandemic,
right,
is where the views the views and the followers and everything just started to spike because everyone was at home, everyone was locked down, everyone was watching things. I remember I did interviews with a lot of the cast of Outer Banks on Netflix.
Sure.
And a lot of those videos were getting so many views from all around the world, and I'm getting followers and interest on our channels all across the globe, which was an amazing thing to see.
Yeah.
And it just started growing and growing and growing. And it started March 2020. It started the pandemic. The pandemic basically was a time where, you know, Popternative really, really like got up to speed and became pretty popular and started buzzing, I would say.
Yeah, and actually, because you mentioned trying to keep your interviews kind of light and like kind of casual, but the way I discovered you, the interview in particular, was with Neil Jackson, who was playing Icicle and Stargirl at the time, and he's obviously very open about his battles with mental health, and I think that's probably why that particular clip, you know, reached me and got so widely shared, is because, you know, to be so candid and so open about something like that. So when people do kind of go in a heavier direction than what you might kind of be aiming for, like how do you approach that, or how do you?
Absolutely. Well, you want to be in a situation where they're comfortable to speak about those things.
Yeah,
they're kind of reading the room a little bit. They're in a conversation with someone and they could say, okay, this is a great opportunity to talk about things. And, you know, like Neil was a great interview. He was very open about a lot of that stuff as well. We also did we did an Instagram live with him when the finale, after the finale of Stargirl season 1. And people were asking him about that as well. And it's very important. And I want Popternative to be a platform where they could talk and promote a lot of things. But I also want it to be an opportunity where self-reflection is done, Connor. You know, we speak about mental health. We could speak about our past. We could talk about things. We could share ideas. We could help each other. That's what it's there for as well, Connor. Don't forget.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know obviously recently, and we were kind of talking about it before we did the recording, you've recently expanded further with Popternative TV. And I suppose, like, for anyone who's like hearing about this for the first time, how would you describe, I suppose, this new facet of Popternative and what it entails?
So it kind of goes back to what I was saying. I always wanted to be a content creator. I always wanted to provide content. But I also wanted to collaborate with amazing content creators. And it was one of those things where I knew Popternative wasn't just going to be a podcast. It wasn't just going to be a website. It's a media brand where we cover a lot of amazing things. So I always had this idea of I know a lot of people that create a lot of content, and I have a YouTube channel that's doing very well right now and keeps growing and growing. And thanks to everyone who's ever listened to this, everyone who subscribes and comments and watches all our videos. You like, if Popternative wouldn't be around if it wasn't for you all. So thank you all very much. And so Popternative TV came up for an idea where I was like, let's expand the channel. Let's make more content on the channel. Let's see what we could do. So, you know, I reached out to a lot of people who create a lot of things, and it's very hard to get eyes on a lot of things these days, believe it or not. And a lot of people had things just that they, you know, had banked that they did 3-4 years ago that are just sitting there in a hard drive that, you know, had maybe a film festival run. And, you know, I had the idea, is, hey, do you want to put it on our channel on Popternative TV? And they said yes. So the first one was, you know, my friends Jessica Camacho and Erica Deutsch from Crossroads. So we have that, and we recently, you know, put Stephanie Baird's amazing short Baby Making 101, where she wrote that and produced that. So you know, we're trying to get more content out there as well before the new year and close to the new year as well. And it was just a way to expand the brand, Connor. That's basically what it is. And I get to, you know, promote a lot of amazing content that might have not been seen before as much. And I wanted to help. I wanted to help in that way.
Yeah. And as you were telling me a bit earlier before we actually started the interview, you have a lot of history with Erica and Jesse from Crossroads, going back to when you were all in school together. So I suppose, like, how was taking your pre-existing relationship with each other and into this kind of new territory?
Yes, absolutely. Jesse Camacho and I and Erica, we all went to Dawson College together. Jesse actually left Dawson College for at one point to go work on Less Than Kind on City TV. So he went to go work on that. And so I had a class with him for a year and everything, but then Erica and I had a few classes, and people that were in the cinema video communications program, everyone kind of saw each other and everything. So yeah, no, that was really cool. So we just kept in touch, like social media allows us to do that. I live in Ottawa right now. But Jesse, stayed in Montreal for a little bit, then moved to Toronto. Same with Erica. You keep in touch over those years though, for sure.
Yeah. And obviously for anyone who's listening, who's like been following along with like Courageous Nerds history, like they'll know that Jesse was our first ever guest. You actually helped facilitate that. So like,
that's pretty amazing considering he's very happy about that because you've done some amazing interviews since then. So it's pretty cool that he was like the first one.
I know. And, I've told him myself, like he's been a great guest, like really insightful, really intelligent guy for sure. But I suppose obviously it isn't just me that you've been able to help out. So like, what do you think you've kind of taken from helping others kind of be in that position to do these interviews?
Oh, I that's a great question. I think it comes down to community. You see it a lot with a lot of shows on on YouTube and all the podcasts. Certain people retweet certain and comment on everyone's things. It's a community basically. And when you can help people out. Some people but some people do interviews like us, like Courageous Nerd and Popternative. Some people don't do interviews. Some people just do kind of reviews of TV shows and the podcast form. But the podcast community specifically when we started was pretty tight. There was a lot of like groups where people would share new episodes to each other and everything. So I think it's just the natural kind of community aspect of things just wants you to help and share. And, I become friends with a lot of actors that they're looking to kind of talk about their work that they're very proud of. So, if there's opportunities to connect them with someone else's show, I'll do that as well. Right. So it's very easy. And it's very quick. It's very quick in this day and age. You know how it is. I just connect you with someone on a DM. It's very easy.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah, and I suppose actually it's very interesting, kind of like both angles in terms of, interviewing the same actors and kind of saying, oh yeah, I know Peter, I know so and so, but then also kind of among ourselves, kind of saying, oh, I just interviewed this person, like I saw your interview, like how were they? Would you kind of say you recognize both aspects of that connectivity, then, like between us as like the interviewers and then as well as the actors, kind of realizing that they've spoken to a lot of people who actually know each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it helps you know this too. Sometimes it helps with prep, right? Like before, if you see that someone like if you saw that someone did my show or Man Cave Chronicles podcast or
Elias,
one of those, Elias, great guy. Shout out to Elias. He's been doing it for quite some time as well. He works very hard on the show. But it's one of those things where it could even be used as research sometimes, right? Like, you're gonna have someone on, or you could ask, like, hey, how is this person? Like, it's great to see that as well. And I do want to say, the growth of your website and your content and courageousnerd.com is just amazing. Like it hasn't even, we're talking about this on Instagram. Like you've been doing interviews for a year, right?
And a bit. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing, man. Seriously, that is really cool. Seriously.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I know, and I really do, appreciate that. I'm British, which means I'm not very good at taking compliments, but yeah, no, I mean, really, yeah, I really do appreciate it. That really does mean a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. You do a really good job of it. It's awesome to see, and it's a great website. And even for people that you do other content as well that's not just interview based. You cover a lot of really amazing things as well. So if people haven't, they can go to courageousnug.com and they can check it out. You see, I'm always plugging away. It's just a quick thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your like marketing brain kind of going off there, like just plug all over.
Absolutely, that's like what we do, and it's always it's fine tuning as well. I think is important. Like I look back, I don't know about you, but I look back at past interviews and I'm always like, how can I make this better? How can I ask this question differently? What should I ask? Like I always look at past interviews as a reference as well.
Or I'm sure even at the earliest interviews, a little bit of cringe, right? Kind of like, and refining your technique since the very earliest ones.
Yeah, well, for sure. that it's, and like, keep in mind, right, when I started in 2015, I was really new to it as well.
Yeah.
So I've been interviewing people for about 6 years now.
Mm.
So that's I've done over, I was talking to my parents about this, I've done over 600 interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just celebrating 100 the other day, but you've definitely, obviously, that's the added years there with the added experience. Look, I'm just wondering, and obviously it'd be impossible to know offhand, like how many like repeat guests do you think you've had in that time, like in terms of people coming back on? Or, I mean,
quite a bit. You've done this too. You know this. There's just some people that you've had on the show that you just jive with and you just connect with right away, and it kind of goes without saying that it won't be their last time on the show, and it won't just be their only time on the show. So like Jesse Camacho is a perfect example. Halia Jones has been on a couple of times. From Lock and Q plays Eden. We've had a few people as well from you've interviewed people from Night Night, Nikki Koss, who's the director of Night Night. She's been on the show a few times. Fiona Renee, for I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's just people that you just want to have on over and over again. Alejandro Idia from Narcos Mexico. There's a lot. I don't know on top how many, but there's been a lot for sure that have returned. And it's amazing because it makes you feel good too, because it makes you feel like a lot of these people are busy. They're always working on projects.
Exactly.
So it makes you feel good because they're taking time out of their busy schedule to come back, which means which indirectly means that you're doing something right. You're doing a good enough job that they want to come back on your show. It's a pretty amazing feeling, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's definitely a great compliment, and obviously both of us have been in that situation of having people back on. I mean, I suppose then you've interviewed maybe an even wider variety. I've kind of stuck more in the entertainment sector. You've interviewed athletes kind of as well, but you have like a favorite kind of area of people you like talking to? Do you kind of prefer that entertainment world or into sports? That kind of, yeah.
I love it all. I love it all. I don't think I could pick anything. I do like when there's crossovers. So for example, I've got a chance to interview a lot of the cast of Mighty Ducks Game Changers and a lot of the but a lot of the original Ducks as well, like Matt Doherty and Marguerite Moreau, and it was just amazing to kind of talk to them, and there's a little bit of crossover there, right? It's sports because it's hockey, but it's pop culture because it's the Mighty Ducks, right? So those are pretty cool ones as well. I'm also a really big music guy as well. I play drums. Petey Beats that was my my radio name in college when I did a radio show in CEGEP Dawson College. Petey Beats, because I played drums. That was like my nickname. That was my stage name and my radio name. So I chose that. So doing a lot of interviews. So interviewing also bands that I grew up listening to. Like Jared from Bowling for Soup and Dave Backish Brownstown from Sum 41. Those are pretty amazing moments as well that I really enjoy as well.
For sure. And actually, just because it's something that I found out recently, that Jarrett from Bowling for Soup, like he sung the theme song for Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done. If you have to go, my interview with him was actually a really fun, nostalgic interview because we just talked about how Bowling for Soup at one point, he even says it in the interview, they just became that band that was just asked to do soundtracks and to be in movies, and they were like, sure. Because there's a lot. Max Keeble's Big Move, and My Greatest Day was in it, like a lot of stuff, like Cursed, they were actually in Cursed, Sky High, like so many amazing ones. Freaky Friday, a lot of Disney as well.
For sure. And I suppose actually this is to wrap this up with my final question, and it's something I ask everyone at the end of every interview, so you might know what's coming. But obviously we're heading into 2022, and what do you hope to accomplish or achieve in the coming months?
I want to continue to build. I want to continue to create. I want to continue the momentum, keep it up. I want to provide our amazing viewers and listeners with amazing interviews, amazing content on the website, popternative.com. We do a lot of really cool things as well. We have a lot of email interviews as well on there. We don't just do video interviews, so you could read up all about that. I just want to keep the momentum going. I want to expand the brand, continue to kind of grow the brand a little bit, get some more stuff on Popternative TV, just continue to build moving forward, man.
Yeah, and obviously, if this interview wasn't like evidence enough to anyone listening, if like you fighting like, should I check out Popternative or check out Courageous Nerd? Both.
Why not both? Absolutely, do it.
We're friends. We get on. Do it. Do both.
Do it and do a marathon. Listen to like our we both, like, you have 2 Jessica Macho interviews. I have 2 Jessica Macho interviews. They could do like a marathon. They could watch them all. They can listen to them all.
Yeah, and I actually lied because that wasn't my last question. I had thought of one other thing, and obviously I know in your like life away from interviews, right? You're involved with hockey and like sports in some way. So like, how does that kind of aspect of your life inform when you're interviewing athletes? That makes sense.
Well, it's interesting because, I grew up in Canada playing hockey, so I was around it as well. So that familiarity comes into play as well. But it's interesting when, you talk to a lot of them, you obviously didn't play at the level that the professional athletes have with the hockey players, but there's obviously that familiarity because you know the game and you're big passionate about the game and everything. So I think they like that as well. But I'm going to be honest with you. I enjoy, especially with the hockey players, I enjoy like talking to them about things that aren't hockey related.
Okay.
Like what shows are they watching? What are they into? We just, Ottawa Senators prospect Igor Sokolov. We talked about, Outer Banks and Money Heist, right? Because they're probably asked so many questions about hockey, like over and over again. Let's change it up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I suppose that's a way then for you as well to kind of tie both of the 2 aspects together and not necessarily think you've got to limit yourself, or because this is a hockey player, I can only talk about hockey, or, I mean, I'm sure even the Canadian actors and actresses maybe might also be fans of hockey, and you could tie it back in that way.
Well, I think that's the really, really cool thing. I think the crossover is amazing. I think, and I actually have asked musicians this too, which is pretty cool, right? Because obviously, athletes have the certain songs they listen to before they go and perform, and athletes love musicians, musicians love sports, love athletes. I always ask like that kind of like, what's that kind of tag team like, and when did you kind of notice it? And they all say it's always there. And the musicians, when they have a show, some of the sports, like people from the sports teams come out, like some of the athletes come out to their shows, and they go to some games when they're touring. So that's amazing. But again, you have to understand that people do interviews all the time because it's part of their jobs, basically. Like athletes, a big part of their job is, when they're not performing and playing the sport, they are, doing interviews, they are preparing, they are doing things. When we're interviewing people from TV shows and movies, Connor, when they're done, they got to do press. They have to promote. Some like doing press more than others. You have to take that into account. They're doing a lot of interviews. So how are you going to stand out? What are you going to ask them? So the best thing I've ever gotten to compliment wise is people have said, wow, you're asking questions I've never been asked before. Love that. That's exactly music to my ears, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, and especially that moment that, after you ask the question where they kind of have to think about it for a second, as opposed to just kind of, just spilling out their answer they said so many times to a question they've heard like 100 times that day, even alone, for sure.
Absolutely. No, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously after that full start there a few minutes ago, just to say again, obviously best of luck with everything going forward, Peter. Check out Popternative, anyone who's listening. I guess, take care, stay safe, and all the best.
You too, man. Thank you so much for having me, Connor. This was awesome. And keep up the good work with Courageous Nerd, man. You're building an amazing media brand there. So just keep it up, man. Seriously, you're doing a really good job.
Thank you.